The University of North Dakota wanted to delve deeper into the issue of sexual assaults on campus, so they conducted their own survey where they spoke to 72 men that go to school at the University of North Carolina. Now, this is a small, North Dakota. Now, this is a small sample, but the respondents had answers to the questions that I think are shocking to say the least. So let me tell you exactly what happened. Now, at first, what they did is they asked the male respondents what they think of sexual intercourse when it's forced, okay? So according to the results, 31.7% of participants said they would act on intentions to force a woman to sexual intercourse if they were confident they could get away with it. However, when asked whether they would act on intentions to rape a woman with the same assurances they wouldn't face consequences, just 13.6% of participants agreed. Now think about that for a second. They're essentially asking the same question, but the wording is different. In one of the questions, the word rape doesn't appear, but they're talking about forcing someone into having intercourse. In the second question, they use the word rape, and the answers differ. Now, before we get into all of that, I find it really interesting that 13.6% of the male respondents still said that they would rape a woman without worrying about consequences.
So now there's some chance that some people misinterpret that sentence to mean like, if you could force her to do it, even if she doesn't want to do it, like in a hypothetical world, like you say, oh, I get to have that woman even though she's not interested. Like, you see what I'm saying? The construction of that sentence seems more hypothetical. When you put rape in there, it becomes less hypothetical. Like, would you rape a woman, right?
Right.
And so I think, to be fair to them, there is that slight distinction. Now, to get to the part where even as fair as we are, you can't get past, first of all, 13.6% saying, yeah, if I could get away with it, of course I would rape people. That's amazing. That's amazing.
And remember,
right?
this isn't some weird methodology. This is just researchers asking them questions, and they're answering themselves. I don't know, there's a possibility some of them might have been trolling. I have no idea. But the fact that 13% of them, more than 13% of them said, yeah, I'd rape if I knew that I didn't have to face any consequences for it, is scary to say the least.
And now, I think we've been overly fair for whatever reason, right? When you look at the sentence again, understand that it says 31.7% would act on the intentions to force a woman to sexual intercourse if they were confident they could get away with it, right? Which then implies
that it's wrong.
It's not really that hypothetical. Like, I mean, obviously the whole thing is hypothetical, but that it's not like, oh, in your fantasy or anything like that. No, if you could get away with it.
Yeah.
So that means, yes, nearly a third of the men thought, well, I mean, if I could use force and not face consequences, I guess I would. And that is super scary.
It is scary. And just to talk about the differences in wording, right? I remember when we had a discussion about teenage girls who get raped on high school campuses and then they get bullied for it, right? And we're trying to understand why it is that happens. Because I know that when I was growing up, that kind of behavior was not acceptable. You don't bully someone who's a victim of rape. You understand the severity of the situation. And then I had this hypothesis about sex ed. And how when I took comprehensive sex ed classes in middle school and high school, we talked about rape. We talked about the severity of it. And I think that really did sink in for a lot of students. I think for some, they don't really understand the severity of what it is to force someone into sexual intercourse. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that when you call it rape, most, but apparently not all, realize it's wrong. But they think, well, if I did that, I wouldn't call it, that's not rape. That they use that to excuse it. You see what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people say, well, I'm not a racist, even though they might do X, Y, or Z, that you would think, you might be using some stereotypes there. And a racist isn't, as an example, right, just a person who says, I hate all N-words, right?
Right.
That's not the only, and in this case, they think, well, I mean, I know she didn't want to, but she was drunk, and so that means that she got herself in that position, right? And they'll come up with 13 different excuses for it. And then if you said that you raped her, they're like, no, that wasn't rape.
Yeah, but what's interesting is in this question, they don't even get into the gray areas of rape, right? Where two people are intoxicated and one thing leads to another. They specifically use the word force. And when you use the word force, there is no gray area. You're forcing someone into having sex with you against their will. Now, the person who did this survey is Sarah R. Edwards. She's an assistant professor in counseling psychology at the University of North Dakota. And here's what she noticed about the respondents. The men who were comfortable admitting their intentions to rape displayed a wide range of outwardly hostile attitudes toward women. The men who rejected the rape language but said they would still use force against a woman didn't display that level of outward hostility.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, first of all, we're not surprised to find out that 13.6% of the guys who said they would rape, watch out, right? I mean, they got massive issues. They got the hostility that's obvious and patented. But I think in some ways for women, the difference between 31.7 and 13.6 is the real danger area. You might be able to tell the guy with the outward hostility because it's outward, right? Whereas the other guy thinks, no, I'm not going to rape. I mean, I'm just going to force her into it, right? And he doesn't have the outward hostility, and it's harder to tell. Those are the guys who might be the real danger.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, it's a shocking survey to say the least, and they're planning on expanding on it. As I said, 73 is a very, very small sample, so I'm curious to see what the response would be if you have, let's say, a nationally representative sample, right?
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the responses will be very different.